You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, November 6th, the last time I did a 49K show. Well, I guess technically I did one yesterday, but our regular scheduling show was last week, way back Wednesday's show with Rob. Here back today after the bye week, after the trade deadline with Rob Stats Guerrera. As always, how are you doing, man?
Cranky today, Steph. Brace yourself.
Okay, all right. We consider ourselves braced, all right? So we are ready for cranky Rob, but I'm not sure. I feel like Rob's always a little cranky, so it might just be turned up a notch this time around. We'll see. But yes, we're bracing for that. Well, Rob, the 49ers made some moves at the trade deadline, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts on these moves are, or just put them up on the screen. So the 49ers did trade for somebody. That would be defensive tackle Khalil Davis. Again, not to be confused with Kalia Davis. Khalil was traded from the Texans for a 2026 7th-round pick. Now, this isn't much of a needle mover for the 49ers. Certainly not a splash trade, as maybe we've grown somewhat accustomed to in recent years. But before I get into some of these other moves, because they're more like procedural moves, I want to get your thoughts on this move, the 11th hour of the trade deadline. How do you interpret this, Rob?
I interpret this as they did something, but this is really like they did something, like they gave up a 7th-round pick a year from now. That means Khalil Davis is probably getting cut by the Texans. Like, you don't give up anything of value, or you don't get a 7th-round pick for anything of value. Like, they made this move. Great. It's a depth piece. Now, I'll say this. I would have had this and I did have this exact reaction when they traded for Jordan Willis from the Jets, and he ended up blocking the punt in the playoff game against the Packers that gave the Niners the win in that game. So who the hell knows? Khalil Davis may yet have some impact on this 49ers season, but I'm not exactly throwing any, celebratory parties because we have Kalia and Khalil Davis at defensive tackle now.
Yeah, I think it's fair to recognize, maybe we've scoffed at the idea of some acquisitions in the past. And, it turns out those players turned out to make a difference for this team, right? Obviously, the 49ers hope it'll be the same thing. But I agree. It does kind of feel like a move just to make a move. Like sure, it's depth. I mean, at a position of some need for the 49ers. We've been talking about interior defensive line for this team. But again, not really a move that to me moves the needle as far as changing where I think this team could potentially go. And maybe this is the 49ers way of saying we didn't really think we're one player away from contending for a Super Bowl. So we're not going to go all out on winning it all for this season. We'll let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, I think that the 49ers, deep in places they don't talk about at parties, they know. They're not really. The odds of them winning a Super Bowl would have to be more of like hey, the Giants won a Super Bowl randomly when they got hot in the playoffs. Like, they're not the juggernaut. They're not, one player away from suddenly being a front runner to win the Super Bowl. That's not where they are. And I think they realized that. And I think they looked at it like we could give up some draft picks to maybe potentially possibly get us closer to that. Or we could roll the dice this year, keep most of our draft picks, and restock the cupboard. And I think they've seen the value of what a solid draft class can look like because they absolutely crushed it last year. And if they can come anywhere close to that in 2025, guess what? We're going to be sitting here talking right back about how the 49ers have the best roster in the league again.
I agree. I do think that the 49ers nailing their 2024 draft does have to give them some confidence and feeling like they can do it again, right? And they're going to have a lot of picks in 2025. So it's not a bad idea to stack up. I've been saying it for, a week or two now, right? That I think the 49ers, where they are right now, we're still in this, like, we don't really know if they're contenders or pretenders. So I wouldn't want to invest too much into this team right now, just in case they were pretenders, right? And of course, things could change in the second half of the season, but if they do, great. And I wouldn't think twice about not having made a splashy move for this team. I think it makes sense for where this team is at. I think we're all expecting some retooling. I don't like to use the rebuild word, but retooling, that's like kind of the soft medium. I think we can expect that in the off season for this team. So I kind of figure like they're looking towards that at this point. And by not giving up too many picks or any picks for 2025, at least, like definitely seems like that's where their head is at. Just kind of looking towards the future, seeing, hey, let's see what we can do rest of this year, but also with an eye to the future, as they often do anyway.
I completely agree.
And the 49ers did, I guess, have an eye to the past as well, because they brought back a former 49er safety to Sean Gibson. As I mentioned yesterday, if you guys didn't check out that show, he was a free agent. He was released by the Jags after having, gone through his suspension and all that. So he signed to the practice squad. Depth at the safety position. That's another position that I think, not a bad idea to address, especially going into the second half of this season. So just some other moves they made because of these two. Anders Carlson released from the practice squad. That's good news. That means Jake Moody most likely back in week 10. And then Jalen Graham waived from the active roster. So all in all, it looks like we're going to be fed the same team as, early this season, with the addition of Christian McCaffrey after the bye week, Dre Greenlaw, hopefully short some time after that, we would assume. But yeah, this is a team that's going to roll with what they have. Personally, I'm not too mad at it. I'm really not. But let's see what trades happened across the league. There were a lot of trades, Rob, but there weren't any like super splashy ones. Like, I'm pretty sure no team gave up a first round pick in this trade cycle, which I believe was the first time that happened in a long time. So that's pretty notable. But I mean, we see some teams that got aggressive, right? Or just made some moves that we kind of were expecting. The Lions brought in Zadarius Smith. That was one everyone was talking about for a while, since Aiden Hutchinson out for the season. So that one made a lot of sense. Then you got like the Commanders, right? Getting Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints. That seems to be a pretty big move. Kansas City, of course, continues to be aggressive, bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, and we saw them enjoying the fruits of that on Monday night against the Bucs. They also got Josh Uche for a 6th-round pick, which I'm still mad about. But you also see the Ravens, making a couple moves for Deontay Johnson and also Tre'Davious White. So, teams that are contending and know that they're contenders, know that they have a chance. You see them being aggressive, even some teams in the NFC, right?
Exactly. I think you saw teams. I mean, the Jets, I don't really think are contenders, but they do whatever Aaron Rodgers wants them to do. So Devontae Adams, come on down. But like the rest of the team, Buffalo, grabbing Amari Cooper well before the deadline. Teams that feel like they really have a shot made the moves. And the 49ers have been in that group for the past few years. They weren't this year, which to me is just another signal that they know that they're sort of at the end of the run with this team. If you're in it, like you're the Lions, you knew the Lions were going to make a move for a pass rusher. There was no way. You think the Lions care about a draft pick a year from now? Hell no. They are murdering people every week. They don't care about a draft pick in 2025. All this organization has had to live on for the past 50 years has been draft picks. Now they have an actual team that's worth watching every Sunday. Of course they were going to make a move, and good for them for going out and doing it, and good for Baltimore for going out and making moves. Like, when your team assembles a roster that's really legitimately good enough to make a run, all you hope for as a fan is that they recognize it and act on it and do everything they can to try and win. Doesn't guarantee everything. Hell, the 49ers are proof of that. But all you want as a fan is to see that your team recognizes and cares as much as you do. And these teams obviously did. So good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it. Like, the Lions look like the 49ers have looked the last couple years. They're like just completely dominant, running over teams. So, yeah, they're taking some of that momentum to the second half of the season as well, bringing in Zadarius Smith. Of course, a lot of these moves, Rob, were spurred by injuries, right? And some guys that they did have no longer being available for them. So kind of out of necessity for some of these teams, but they're basically saying, hey, we're not giving up. And yeah, like you said, good for them. I wanted to just focus on teams that are contending or contending for a playoff spot, I should say. So I removed the Cowboys, just the silliness of the Cowboys and whatever the hell they thought they were doing with getting Jonathan Mingo from the Panthers. Good luck to them.
For a fourth. They love to give away fourth round.
For a fourth is crazy too, of all things. So, like, who else did I take from this list? I think I took the Jets off and I took the Cowboys off. Might have been another team. But yeah, so let's just focus on the teams that may be a threat to the 49ers. And I want to focus on the NFC West teams. You see the Seahawks making a move, Ernest Jones, Roy Robertson Harris, Arizona making a move for Baron Browning. So these are teams that right now are, in a position to win the NFC West. And I only say that because the NFC West right now is such a tight race that it really could be anybody's division at this point. The Cardinals are 5-4. The Rams are 4-4. They didn't make any moves at the trade deadline, but obviously they feel pretty good about who they have. 49ers 4-4. Seahawks 4-5. But still in it, right? So after having seen what the NFC West is looking like, what moves they're making, do you feel better about the 49ers or maybe not so much? Like, we're kind of at this point where I think we need to consider that the Cardinals, Rams, and maybe even the Seahawks, could be threats to the 49ers being able to win this division.
None of the trades that they made changed my opinion on their teams one way or the other. The problem is that the Cardinals and Rams already have beaten the 49ers without those people. So, yeah, they have to be considered threats because, right now the 49ers are in third place and they've earned every bit of that. They should have beaten the Cardinals and they should have beaten the Rams and they should be 6-2. And we should be talking about the 49ers as one of the best teams in the NFC and potentially making that run. And you know what? If they were 6-2, I bet you we would have had a hell of a lot more than Khalil Davis at the trade deadline, but they're not. They're 4-4 and they've earned it. So those other teams are threats. Whether it's because the 49ers beat themselves or not, doesn't really matter. They don't give a rat's ass. You think the Cardinals care if they beat the 49ers twice because the 49ers peed on their leg in the fourth quarter 2 times? They don't care. They'll take it, man. You don't have to give any of the wins back. So that's where the Niners are right now. Like, you got to drop the whole pretense of we're the best team. You're not. You're right in the thick of it. Doesn't mean you can't win it, but you got to acknowledge what you are.
Yeah, and, I've heard in the last few weeks people pointing out, the 49ers should be 6-2, right? But yeah, like you said, they're not. Like, that's the point, right? And so they are their record that is 4-4. They are a mid team. The only teams they have beat have been bad teams to this point. In fact, that's why I think this game against the Bucs is such a big deal, because they're better than the teams that the 49ers have won against to this point. Now, not saying that the 49ers can't win this game, but my stance, Rob, right now, I'm not betting money on it. I actually do think the Bucs could win that game on Sunday. Of course, I'm hoping for the opposite, but just looking at how this team has performed so far, I'm not holding my breath for anything. But let's take a look at Kyle Shanahan's record as 49ers head coach month by month. We've been looking at this, for the past month, right? We talked about October. October continued to be not great to Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, although, they split 2-2 in October. So they're now 15 of 21. November, though, historically has been great to the 49ers. 11-9 Not bad. So are you thinking that November starts this little run the 49ers pretty much need to get into?
That's the thing. It has to. If they're going to do what we want them to do, what we hope they do, they don't have much choice. You got to get going, man. You can't keep losing these games and saying, well, don't worry, they'll be better next week. You're running out of next week's. You got to stop this, man. You got a Tampa Bay team right now that's coming off an overtime emotional loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Their defense was on the field for 80 plays and more than 40 minutes of actual game time. They are tired. They're coming off a short week. You're coming off a bye. One of the few times that the 49ers have a rest advantage in 2024. You got to come out and smash the Buccaneers. Beat their ass. Run the ball a billion times, and it doesn't all have to be with Christian McCaffrey. Let Jordan Mason cook. Let Isaac Guerrero cook. Run it down their throat. Give me the play action. Give me the screens. Give me the Jimmy Gimmies, and let's go.
What are the Jimmy Gimmies?
The Jimmy Gimmies, the easy throws that Shanahan used to dial up for his quarterbacks. And he started to do that a little bit in the Cowboys game as well. We started to see more of those things, which is why that was so encouraging. That's what we need. That's what we need. No more fucking around.
Did you say bucking around?
I did not.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounded like you did, and that would have actually been pretty sweet because they play the Buccaneers. But
True.
But let's look at who the 49ers play in the month of November. The Bucs, the Seahawks, and then the Packers. So I know we know that the Bucs are kind of hurting right now. You know, you mentioned the fact they're on a bit of a rest deficit, just having played Monday. 49ers, of course, have the rest advantage in this one. So that could play into it. And I think like there's something to the fact that the Bucs, without two of their top receivers, you know, you're fighting still. They held on pretty well against the Chiefs, certainly better than I thought they would. But, you know, even still, to lose in overtime in that fashion, it's a little demoralizing, right? And then on a short week, you have to play a 49ers team who, you know, gonna get Christian McCaffrey back most likely. So that could maybe hurt the Bucs minds a little bit. And in turn, the 49ers, like we've been saying, they need to kind of take advantage of that. You need to kill the wounded animal at this point, so to speak. And the Bucs are kind of that wounded animal. The 49ers, on the other hand, getting some health back in their favor. So it's time to turn the corner here if we're going to make a run here.
And all those games are winnable. And it's not like
even the Packers.
100%. Jordan Love can't help but turn the football over. Did you see that pick he threw against the Lions before halftime? My God, Jordan Love is the exact same quarterback he was that threw that pick to Dre Greenlaw that ended their season last year. He's the same guy. You know, we get caught up in this whole throw porn, right? Oh, look at this throw on Twitter. He's backpedaling. He flicked his wrist. Oh, my God. Look, it's so good. Oh, look, he changed the protection before the play. Oh, my God. Yeah, great. All that doesn't make you a good quarterback. And you know what? He's just not that good right now. He's capable of some high highs, but also some super low lows. So all those games are winnable. The Packers game, the Seahawks, they always kick the Seahawks' ass. All those games, it's not like the 49ers have to play way over their head to win those games. Not by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, they should win all those games.
You know, that's the thing, right? Like, I think the 49ers have shown us glimpses of, like, they could be good. I keep talking about the fact that, like, still one of the best teams at getting to the red zone. Like, I can't stop ignoring that fact. Like, they're on the cusp of being as good as they were last year. When you look at some of those stats, they need to finish, though. And hopefully Christian McCaffrey can go a long way to fixing that. I think it could, certainly in the red zone and on third downs. So I'm holding out some hope that it could look differently, but also some execution issues, some things they need to clean up. And so, yeah, I mean, I always think that can rear its ugly head still. But I'm holding out hope. They could look like a different team in the second half of the season. If they do against the Bucs, then how I feel about them in the second half of the season completely changes, and I might be a little more optimistic.
Do you want me to blow your mind right now?
Blow my mind, Rob. Okay, I think you blew out my headphones.
Okay, well, I'm 2 for 2 then. I'm going to be 2 for 2. This comes from Michelle Majuk, who's part of the Gold Standard Network, hosts the show with me on Friday. She's also a researcher from NFL Network. There are 8 teams right now that are scoring at least 26 points per game this season. 49ers are one of them. Hooray! Yay! That's good for us, right? Avengers! Oops, wrong button. That was the one I wanted. Of the 8 teams that score 26 points per game or more this year, 7 of those have a red zone percentage of 65%. 7 of the 8 teams that score 26 points per game score touchdowns on 65% of their red zone drives. The other team is the 49ers, who are scoring touchdowns on 48.6% of their red zone drives.
Wild.
If they just improve a little bit, like just a little bit, they're going to kick the shit out of people. That I don't even know how they're scoring as much as they're scoring without being good in the red zone. That's the weirdest part about all of this. Their offense is good, Steph. They are top 5 in yards per game and points per game. In fact, they're top 2 in yards per game. The only team that gains more yards per game than the 49ers is the Ravens. That's it. Even the Lions, right, who we all think are kicking everybody's ass, they don't gain as many yards per game as the 49ers. The Niners are 6th in points per game in the league, and they're scoring on less than half of their red zone drives. Like, if they just improve a teensy bit, they're going to be back to thrashing people.
Which is mind-blowing. And that's why. So I'm reserving some space for myself to be optimistic. And I don't think it's crazy to think that Christian McCaffrey alone could turn some of that around. Like you said, even just a smudge, right? Even with some of the execution issues, I still think Christian McCaffrey alone will go a long way to turning some things around for this offense. So I do have some optimism there. I do have some hope. I really hope they don't disappoint me because, like I said, Rob, they've given us glimpses of everything, like glimpses of a dominating defense, glimpses of, the rookies looking great, and glimpses of this offense being like high scoring, potent offense, bullies like they used to be, right? But it's only been glimpses. So that's where my hesitancy has been. And like I said, hopefully they could turn it around. But those are some crazy numbers for sure.
Yeah, thanks to Michelle for getting those numbers. Just, to add to my frustration, they're also making a field goal on 26.5% of their drives. That is the 3rd highest rate in the league. They are the only team to average 26 or more points per game and have a red zone touchdown percentage of under 50% in the last 9 years. Like, this is a freaking anomaly what the 49ers are doing. And that leads me to believe that it won't hold up. It'll change in some way. Now, it may change for the worse, unfortunately, or it's going to change for the better. But like the odds that they keep doing it the way they've been doing it this year seem pretty low.
Rob, I'm also really hanging on to what you've shown me, the fact that Kyle Shanahan after the bye week seems to be a completely different coach, and the 49ers seem to be a completely different team historically under Kyle Shanahan after the bye. So I'm also holding out hope for that, because if it's adjustment driven, any of those adjustments as to why the 49ers are struggling on 3rd down, struggling in the red zone, that could also be fixed, in the second half of the season based on like just little tweaks to the play calling or little things like that, counters to what defenses are doing to trying to stop you. Remember, in the first half of the season, there are a few players, Ayuk, Brock Purdy included, who said teams just know what we want to do. Right. And that's troubling, but I do think that's part of the reason why they kind of struggled to find some footing in the first half of the season. Now with a week to kind of reevaluate, reassess, and kind of come up with some counters to those things, there is some room there for the 49ers to make some changes and start scoring at a crazy rate.
And the biggest thing that they need to change is they got to stop giving the football away. They have to. The 49ers have 11 giveaways this year. 9 of those 11 giveaways have come in the second half. You want to know why they're struggling to hold leads? It's because they're giving the other team extra possessions. They have to stop doing that. And the good news, Steph, is that may be the single biggest thing that Christian McCaffrey contributes to this offense if he can play. Because the 49ers, when Christian McCaffrey does not play, commit almost 2 turnovers a game, 1.6 turnovers per game without Christian McCaffrey. With Christian McCaffrey, they contribute or they turn the ball over 0.8 times per game, literally half as much when Christian McCaffrey plays. That's why they win when he plays. They don't turn the football over because they're running the ball more, which is generally less risky. And when they pass, his gravity is getting guys so wide ass open that there's no chance for the passes to be intercepted. So even if Christian McCaffrey comes back and he's not 1,000%, I think just his mere presence alone is going to help the 49ers cut down on the turnovers. And if they don't give the ball away, they'll win.
And that's surprising, right? That it's so much of a difference in takeaways with Christian there versus when he's not. But I think what you said makes sense. I mean, you're running the football more, a little more risk adverse. You have more separation with guys. Maybe that's even why the yak numbers were more last season than they have been this year too. Also the fact that Brock Purdy throwing the football a little bit further this season, that definitely attributes to the smaller windows that he's been throwing into. But yeah, I mean, as far as giveaways per game, the 49ers are 22nd with 1.4. And I want to say like they didn't, in the first few weeks of the season, I don't think it was that bad, but as the season has gone on, yeah, they're at 1.4, 22nd. Still in turnover margin though, they're tied 8th with plus 0.5. The defense is getting turnovers. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine if the offense was just a little more careful with the football, again, how much that can contribute to the 49ers actually scoring more points too? Because let's not forget, the 49ers have had a few turnovers in the red zone this season as well, which of course is going to hurt your red zone numbers. So yeah, if they could just clean that up, again, like there's just so many little things they need to clean up. And I'm just like, man, are they going to be able to boil the ocean during this bye week, right? Like, I guess that's my concern. It almost feels like there's too much adversity, too much going against them, too much that has to go right, has to go perfect in the second half of the season for them to pull this off. But damn it, I have some hope.
Just stop Brock Purdy in the second half. Stop screwing up. 7 total touchdowns for Brock, 6 interceptions in the second half this year. Just don't give the damn ball to the other team, dude. Cut it out. Like, do what the moment calls for. And most of the time in the second half, the 49ers have the lead, and they don't need you to put the cape on and be Superman, dude. They don't need it. Stop giving the ball to the other team. He's on pace right now for 20 touchdowns and I think 14 interceptions. That's a shit year. In a contract year when you want $60 million, like, dude, you got to be better than that. And the way you can be better than that is by trying less, like doing less. You don't have to force the issue. And I really like that's a change that he can make because we've seen him play many, many clean games in a row. Like he doesn't have for most of the time in his career an interception problem, but it's been a thing this year and he needs to fix it. And he can, but he needs to.
I think we were expecting some regression in the interception category this season, just because I think we all kind of know he was a little lucky, last season with interceptions and some that didn't end up being, but they were right off the hands of defenders. So I think like regression was bound to happen, but maybe not to this extent, right? So I agree. I would like to see bit more of a healthier balance between touchdowns and interceptions for Brock. And I agree. I think the opportunity is there. I think he could do it. We've seen him do it. Rob, this is a perfect segue to this game this week against the Bucs, let's go ahead and get to our Way Back Wednesday segment of this week. So all-time record between the 49ers and Bucs. They've played each other 27 times. The 49ers are 20-7. That is pretty dominant. And, surprisingly, they've only played each other once in the postseason. Also a little surprising, but the Bucs have been bad for like a really long time. You got to remember, like, really the only time they were good was with Tom Brady. So yeah, I mean, that's part of it. But I want to go back, Rob, and quite honestly, I'm not going way back with this Way Back Wednesday. I'm going to December 11th, 2022. You might remember this. I certainly do. 35-7 win. It was Brock Purdy's first career start against the Tampa Bay Bucs. He became the first quarterback to beat Brady in his first career start. Kind of a big deal. And the thing I remember most about this game, and one thing that Travis in the comments kind of points out, hey, like Tampa's going to be coming after Brock. Well, the Bucs did in that game. Like they were blitzing him up the ass, and he still performed very well. It was like a vintage Brock performance, right? But
in his first career start.
Yeah, it is vintage Brock performance. Well, when I look back on it now, Rob, come on. It's just like the confidence, the poise, getting the ball out quickly. And I think we want to see more of that, right? I think we've been very happy to see some new elements to his game. Sure, you can throw further down the field more often. Cool, like that sounds great. But I think we want some of that old identity of the 49ers back too, like yards after the catch, bullying opposing defenses, Brock staying upright, getting the ball out quickly, having some wheels, which he has shown this season as well. But yeah, I would love to see this version of Brock Purdy with some of the improvements that he's made since then on Sunday.
When he hit McCaffrey for that 27-yard touchdown, I'll never forget the feeling. I was like, holy crap. Like we have a quarterback now that we're not going to see the day after the game, these open receivers running down the field and the quarterback not making the play. Like we seem to have a guy that's willing to go out and do it. And that made it 21-0 in that game too. And like, I really believed, I was like, holy crap, they're going to win this game. Like, this is unbelievable. This guy in his first start is taking down Tom Brady. And that's what we love about Brock, is that he does throw the ball deeper down the field. Now, this year, sometimes it seems to be, a little scarier, I'll say, at certain points. Ben Solak of ESPN described it like this. YOLO yeet.
I remember that clip.
Yeah, like, kind of. I want a little more yeet, a little less YOLO if we could this week.
I love that. It speaks to the aggressiveness of Brock, right? But I think also you want it to be a little more maybe thought out as well. Yeah, Brock in that game, 16 of 21, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8.8 yards per attempt. So, I mean, it wasn't like crazy, right? Like 185 yards. Like that's not a crazy performance, but it was just right. It was just right to get the job done. Tom Brady threw 55 times in that game.
2 picks.
34, 55, 2 picks.
Niners ran the ball 36 times. That's why you don't need Brock to throw it more, because they ran it 36 times for 209 and 3 touchdowns. Forget YOLO yeet. They're just running it right up your ass.
And Brock had a rushing touchdown in that game as well. So technically he had 3 touchdowns. But also, I couldn't help but notice, Rob, Christian McCaffrey in that game had 14 carries, 119 yards. Jordan Mason, 11 carries, 56 yards. I wouldn't mind a split like that in this game on Sunday. We're assuming it's Christian McCaffrey's first game back from this hiatus he's been on since the Achilles tendonitis. Obviously, you want to ease him back in, but I also worry that the 49ers are just so excited to have him back that they'll like run him to the ground as well. And I'm sure Christian is going to tell the team like, no, I'm fine. I feel great. So I don't I hope that doesn't happen, but I would love a 14-11 split or something similar to that in this game.
Christian's not. He's going to be like, I want every carry. He's going to be the YOLO yeet of running backs and just say, give me all the touches all the time.
No.
That's who he is. And if the game is close, Kyle's going to be like 23, just run him out there every time. Like, in reality, we'd like to see Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero between the 20s, and then Christian McCaffrey on third downs and in the red zone. That's really, like, if you could pick the ideal scenario, that's what you want.
That's what I'm saying. And I agree with you that if it's a close game, they're going to lean on Christian McCaffrey heavily, which that's a slippery slope, because before you know it, you're going to be telling yourself, we need Christian McCaffrey on this play. Oh, wait, we need him on this play too. And this one. We can't afford to have him off the field. And we all know that Christian is going to be pushing to be out there for every snap. But my guy, the reason that you're in this position to begin with is because you're pushing for every single snap. Maybe you need to chill, hand back just a little bit. We know Jordan Mason can handle it. I like what I've seen from Guerrero as well, and some, spots here and there. So, I mean, hey, like, as long as the team is gaining yards, it's okay.
And, like, we've seen a lot of times with Christian McCaffrey too. He'll break off like a 25, 30-yard run, and then they'll give him the ball again on the next play. Like, if he does that, take him out. Take him out. Let him rest for a play or two, then bring him back. Like, you really have to just be judicious about how you use him, especially in this week, right? Look, if it's week 17 or week 18, right, you're playing the Cardinals in that last game and it's win or go home, then screw it. Play him every damn snap. But that's not where we are right now. And until we're there, let's be smart, because if we're not smart, well, then you're going to lose him for a much, much longer period of time and maybe forever.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe Kyle has not been so strict in putting his foot down in the past, but I think this is one time where we really are depending on him to do this with Christian McCaffrey this time around. And he has to understand that it's important for Christian to get rest so that he's healthy for the long haul. So, and maybe, just maybe, having Christian back helps Debo look a little better on some of his carries if they give him those opportunities. Maybe we see Ricky Pearsall in another end around. I don't know. Maybe some screens. I don't know. Like you were saying, Rob, I'd like to see some more creativity, right? So when I say that those are the kind of plays I'm kind of talking about for some of those other guys who could be dynamic players as well. Hopefully see it.
He shouldn't have to carry the whole team on two bulky Achilles tendons
in his first game back, no less. So save it for the playoffs. If it's the playoffs, it's like, okay, sure, I understand. It's bigger stakes, but maybe just chill right now. So I think we're all a little nervous to see what that split looks like, but hopefully it's a positive one for the team and for Christian as well. I'm excited for this game. Rob, you know that I'm not predicting the 49ers to win, I think, because I got to see it first, but I'm assuming you're confident the 49ers win this one?
They should win this one even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play. The Buccaneers are tired. They're banged up. They're missing their two starting wide receivers. Their defense is not good, Steph. Their defense has given up the third most passing yards in the entire league this year. It's Carolina 1, Jacksonville 2, Tampa Bay 3. All right. You shouldn't need Christian McCaffrey. You should be able to pass all over these fools. And they've also given up the 19th most rushing yards per game in the league. So you can run on them a little bit too. Like, you shouldn't have any difficulty beating the Buccaneers, even without Christian McCaffrey. Now you have him back. And if you can't beat the Buccaneers, then you're not any good. Okay. You're just not. And we can put the 49ers to bed. So I think they're going to go out and do it. I hope they're going to go out and do it. No more fucking around, Brock Purdy. And let's go.
Whew, spicy Rob in the house.
I'm so tired of it. We have to sit here and talk about this team. Oh, they're so good. They're so talented, yet they're 4-4. Good teams don't sit around like this.
That's why I've been so frustrated. I have been doing the 49ers should win, and then they don't win. So that's why, like, my expectations have come down a notch a bit. I understand I'm not usually this pessimistic, but it's come from what I've seen so far. And so, yes, they should beat this team, but whether they do or not is a different question. So I got to see it first. And then, of course, I'm going to feel good against this Seahawks team in a couple weeks too. But one game at a time. This is a big one for the 49ers. And, obviously every game is going to be big for them here on out. But Rob, thank you so much for joining me on a Wednesday. I know, like you said, you're a little cranky, but hey, we still like cranky Rob. So make sure that you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. And don't just subscribe to 49 Carats Pod. Make sure you subscribe to Gold Standard Network as well. Rob putting out great content each and every day. So make sure you guys tune into that as well. But for now, have a good rest of your Wednesday, folks. Peace.